Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala habibina Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah Azza wa Jal addresses mankind and the jinn kind. This is actually the only surah in the Qur'an where Allah Azza wa Jal directly addresses the jinn and speaks to them. In this amazing surah, Allah Azza wa Jal repeats an ayah 31 times. SubhanAllah, almost half the ayat of this surah is this particular ayah. There's only 78 ayah in this surah, and 31 of them is this ayah. What is it? Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And which of the favors of your Lord and Master will you then deny? Allah Azza wa Jal is addressing mankind and the jinn kind. Why would Allah Azza wa Jal repeat it so many times? Well, for the most part, mankind and jinn kind are very ungrateful. They worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do as they please. They don't recognize the favors that Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed them with. The daily blessings that we take for granted, our eyesight, our hearing, our hearts beating, our lungs filling with air. SubhanAllah, we take these for granted. When we wake up in the morning, we just assume that they're all going to just work, SubhanAllah. So Allah Azza wa Jal revealed these ayat to the people, the polytheists, those who were worshipping other than Allah at the time of Muhammad ﷺ in Mecca, and to the jinn kind that were worshipping other than Allah. And these people were very stubborn, and they grew very, very impatient because they were hearing the Qur'an being recited over and over and over again, and they got sick and tired of it. So Allah Azza wa Jal revealed these verses to repeat and remind and try to get it into their heads, the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed them with, and to turn back to Him and worship Him. But they got so stubborn, they started making fun of the Qur'an. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَإِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا شَيْئًا اتَّخَذَهَا هُزُوًا. And if they came to know of something of the Qur'an, they would make a joke out of it, make a mockery out of it. And they would tell one another, Allah Azza wa Jal says, لا تسمعوا لهذا القرآن والغوا فيه. Don't listen to this Qur'an at all and make noise when you hear it. Try to avoid listening to it at all costs. This was their attitude, subhanAllah. Very stubborn and making a mockery of Al-Islam and the message that Muhammad ﷺ brought from the Qur'an. Where Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, if we hear the Qur'an, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. Allah Azza wa Jal says, when the Qur'an is being recited, listen to it very carefully and don't speak. SubhanAllah, this is the mannerisms or the manners we have with the Qur'an when it's being recited. And look at their mannerisms. Don't listen to it, or they were making fun of it. SubhanAllah. Telling others to avoid it at all costs. SubhanAllah. So because of this, Allah Azza wa Jal had to repeat Himself and wanted to repeat Himself over and over and over so that maybe the message would sink in. To give you a real day example or real life example, imagine somebody is extremely angry and you're telling them to calm down. They don't listen to you right away. You have to say it, 10, 15 times, calm down, calm down. And it may only take one time for them to hear and listen to that, and then they settle down. Even though you said it 10 or 15 times, the one of those times is the one that they heard, subhanAllah. So Allah Azza wa Jal repeats this ayah, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ 31 times in hopes that insha'Allah that they would take heed and they would realize what Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed them with. But instead, they turned away. And this revelation of this surah or these ayats was for the people and the jinn that were amongst the Prophet ﷺ in his time, and also anybody until the end of time that exhibits these kind of qualities, where they turn away from the Qur'an or they're very ungrateful. These ayat are also for them as well. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? Which of the favors and blessings of your Lord will you then deny? SubhanAllah. And something else that which is very amazing in this Qur'an, in this surah, SubhanAllah, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Jannah in this surah. And then he mentions the ayah, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ 8 times. SubhanAllah. And that is the same number of gates to Jannah. SubhanAllah. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Jannah and then mentions this ayah 8 times after mentioning Jannah, which is the same number of the gates of paradise. Allahu Akbar. And when Allah Azza wa Jal mentions hellfire in this surah, he mentions the ayah 7 times. SubhanAllah. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? And that's how many gates, the number of gates there is in hellfire. SubhanAllah. Look at the accuracy of the Qur'an. So that is, when Jannah was mentioned, this ayah was mentioned 8 times. And when Jahannam, hellfire, was mentioned, this ayah was mentioned 7 times. SubhanAllah. And something else very interesting as well, there is 78 ayahs in the surah. So if you look at the 7, that's 7 gates of hellfire, and the 8 is for 8 gates of Jannah. SubhanAllah. Look at how things all tie together. SubhanAllah. It's very beautiful. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.